You recognize the gentleman up there on the PowerPoint. Originally, I was going to show a video of him speaking, but didn't feel it was appropriate to give him any pulpit time this morning. That man is named Harold Camping, and according to him, according to his prophecy, he claims that the world is going to end this Saturday? When's the 21st? Saturday? Saturday. Yeah. He claims to have some kind of special divine revelation from God, and I've listened to much of what he said and where he takes his text from, and that's what his claim is that that's it, it's Judgment Day on Saturday. Now, I don't believe that to be the case. I believe the Bible is very clear about the fact that no man knows when the Lord is going to return and when he's going to come back and he's going to judge and he's going to rapture everyone out. So I don't believe that this is the case at all. But isn't it interesting, though, to think about? I mean, even though I believe that Saturday is going to be D-Day for everyone, there's a sense in which you got to wonder, when is that day coming? When is that day coming? And it would be very easy, and it's been the attitude of many of who are his faithful followers who call into his radio program. This is actually one of Kelly's guilty pleasures, her secret things. You know, she loves to listen to family radio, and she's got me listening to it too because some of it's kind of interesting, you know, to hear all the different people. And then people call in and they ask him really hard questions that he has a hard time answering, and it's informative. But, you know, wouldn't it be easy? And it's the attitude and mentality of someone who call in to just go, well, if the world's going to end on Saturday, why should I bother doing anything the rest of the week, right? I mean, happy birthday, Gloria. So, you know, can you imagine? That's the attitude of many. You know, and there are many who've given the ministry, his ministry, money. And there have been people who've asked, you know, if the world doesn't end on the 21st, you're going to give all that money back? And boy, it's fun to hear him dodge those questions. But nonetheless, you know, it's easy. And it's the attitude and mentality of some who got discouraged and said, well, that's it. Why should I bother doing anything? Why should I move forward? But that's nothing new, is it? That mentality. To get trapped and set in that mindset that says things are changing. They're never going to be the way that they were. They're never going to be as good as they once were. And I'm never going to have things the way that I want them. So why put effort in? Why try to find the strength to move forward? And this is nothing new. And we all struggle with this mentality, and I would venture that there may be even some here today who are struggling with that. They're struggling with this overwhelming oppression that says, why should I bother to just keep going when things are never going to be as good as they were and they're not going to be the way that I would like them to be? In Haggai, we find that the people, as they're rebuilding a temple, are struggling with the same mentality. And in the text, we ask the question today, why should we take heart when we're discouraged about moving forward? Why should we take heart when we're discouraged about moving forward? And there's a poem there that we're going to look at the end that we're going to read. It's a fantastic poem. But why should we bother? Why should we take heart when we're discouraged about moving forward? You see, in Haggai, we looked at last week, we looked at Haggai chapter 1 last week. That was the first prophecy that Haggai receives from God to give to the people to encourage them to begin rebuilding God's temple. And what we have here today, we're going to look at the second prophecy. There's 4 total. But today, we're going to see the next prophecy. You see, what in the first prophecy, this led to the people beginning to work. But now, in chapter 2, the second prophecy, it's about 6 weeks have taken place. And the people are building, but they're discouraged. They're discouraged. And they're wondering why they should keep working. Because they've come to the realization, and many have heard, that no matter what they do, this temple is not going to be as great and as glorious as it was in Solomon's day. It's not going to be as ornate or fantastic. It's not going to look as great. And the people are going, well, if it's never going to be like it was before, why should we really put that much effort in? Why should we really try? Why should we keep building? And we see here in the first few verses, it gives us a little bit of background on the situation and what's going on. When we ask the question, why should we take heart when we're discouraged about moving forward? In the next slide, of course, our timeline as we're progressing through this thing, we're still right there toward the end of the temple being built in Haggai's time. But when we look at the text, as we flip forward to the next slide in the text, we see some background on what's going on in the situation. What we see is in verse 1 of Haggai chapter 2, it says, in the 7th month, on the 21st day of the month, the word of the Lord came by the hand of Haggai the prophet in the 7th month on the 21st day. This is the end of one of the Hebrew festivals, the Festival of Booths. That's when they would all go out and sleep in tents. They just camp out and sleep in tents as a way of remembering when God protected them and cared for them when they were wandering in the wilderness after they had left Egypt. So they're coming in on the end of this festival. Some time has taken place. They've started building, but again, they're discouraged about how things are. And God comes to Haggai, and he gives this prophecy. He says in verse 2, "Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and to all the remnant of the people." Sounds familiar, right? Like the beginning of the last prophecy. Here's what he says to them, though, in verse 3. "Who is left among you who saw this house in its former glory?" He gives us three rhetorical questions that God is asking Haggai to share with the priest and basically the building inspector. That's what Zerubbabel was. You know, and it's to share with him and then to share with the people. He says, "Who is left among you who saw this house in its former glory? How do you see it now? Is it not as nothing in your eyes?" Now what he's saying here to them is, how many of you people were actually old enough to even remember Solomon's temple? That's the thing. 66 years have gone by since the destruction of the temple and the beginning of this rebuilding project. 66 years and then some change. So basically the people would have to be 70 or older in order to even have any kind of a recollection of what the former temple looked like. So they're going on what they've heard from other people, from their parents, grandparents, about how great it was, but they've never actually seen it. God is saying, how many of you were even there in the first place? Now look at it. Where is it? How does it look to you now? Is it nothing? Well, yeah, it's not there. So basically, why are you hung up on that? Why are you discouraged about that? That's old news. It's gone. You can't get it back. But I've got something better. I've got something better. God is saying this to these people. Don't get hung up on what the temple looks like on the outside. The most important thing about the temple is the fact that I'm on the inside. I'm on the inside. God says I'm more important than the external appearance of the temple, what it looks like on the outside. The most important thing is that I'm there. My presence is among you. Verse 3. And he gives them three admonitions in this first section. You see, Haggai, normally I know you guys are probably somewhat accustomed to 3 points, and you can probably kind of gauge where Pastor Sam is and how much time he has left based on where those 3 points are. You know, that's all well and good. But today, I'm throwing you a curve. There's only 2 today. Because Haggai chapter 2 divides evenly in 2 parts. And what we have there in this initial part is God more or less speaking in the present. He's kind of prophetically laying out how things are going to go here in the near future and what to expect and anticipate. But then in the second part, we see a prophecy of the future of, drumroll, Judgment Day. We talked about that at the beginning, didn't we? Now, we know, of course, as I mentioned before, we don't know the exact day. But it's amazing here that what we see is a little glimpse of the future of what we can expect and anticipate when God does in fact come back, when He does return and what He's going to do. That's how Haggai divides 2 parts. What we see here in this first part are 3 admonitions from God to His people about rebuilding the temple. Letting go of the way the temple was before and realizing the most important part of the temple is that God is there. God is there. What does he say first? He says, we see that because of God's presence, we can be strong. No matter how discouraged you are, no matter how disappointed you are with the way things are now, God says, you can be strong because I am there. 3 different times he tells him this in this prophecy.